I do think a lot of times our initial reaction is outrage. Like, we're very frustrated, especially when it comes to like cultural appropriation or co-option of the culture. And we want to defend ourselves, and we want to demand that acknowledgement of whether it's Black women as the originators of that culture. What's the productive way to do that? Because I do think that sometimes it can get very hairy, and it can oftentimes scare people into ever trying again.
When cancel culture occurs in its worst state, then we can't learn from each other, right? So like, people are very afraid to like make a mistake sort of on the internet, so they just won't speak at all. Now I think that with social media and with Twitter and Instagram, it's a nice place to have the initial conversation. But you could easily take it offline and speak in real life, and that's what I'm always eager to do, and I think that that's always a solution for me. So I think a lot of things can be lost in translation in Instagram or in Twitter, but if you just do a quick video or something of the sort, that's a way to solve that issue.
I feel like this probably sounds awful, but I kind of don't mind when Twitter drags somebody for appropriating our culture. I know it can be scary for them to want to try and discover and experience new things, but I do think you do have a responsibility to know what you're trying or know what you're getting into, because I feel like that excuse always comes back, like, I didn't know, and there are like those tears, and I'm just like not here for it. So that's my stance more or less on it, is you should still do your homework, and if you don't, you might get dragged, and take that as a lesson to learn, because you obviously got dragged for a reason, and people are seriously outraged for a reason.
You know what I think is tricky about that though, is that a lot of people who are part of cancel culture don't do their homework when they're about to cancel someone. And I'm like, so having working at Elle, working at all of these mainstream magazines, a lot of cancel culture is like, well, if they just had a Black girl on staff, that wouldn't have happened. And I'm like, there are 8 of us. Like, there are so many. I'm like, did anyone Google my face?
Yeah.
Like, I don't. And so it's that sort of thing where I'm like, we all need to do better.
Yeah.
We all need to do our homework before we just like pop off on Instagram.
And I think we also have to be really careful how we do choose to cover that, right? Because I've been in a lot of situations like where it's like, oh, the Kardashian wore something and she's calling it Bantu knots, right? And then she's getting dragged on Black Twitter, she's getting dragged everywhere. She should be getting dragged. Like, I am not a proponent. Like, let's just put that out there.
You can drag it. Don't get it twisted, y'all.
Really not.
Don't get it twisted.
But I will say, there have been times where I'm like, they're like, well, Maya, I think you should cover that. And I'm like, okay, I do think that we should educate our readers, and we should educate, and we should put this on social, but we should also not only cover the bad things, right? Not only cover the negative things. This is the media. We don't want everything that when we Google to be about, oh, cultural appropriation, or oh, this person was dragged. I think also, even when we reshare and regram things, and when we use all of our own platforms, we just need to be very deliberate in our language, and just make sure that although yes, we are educating people, and yes, this is bad and this should not happen, but here is the solution.
Right. No, that's so real.